Dagi Jizo Jipe Sonamji Drola Penji Sanje Rupa Shosho Sanje Chetan Soki Chonan La Chanchu Padu Dagi Kyapsuji Dagi Jizo Jipe Sonamji Drola Penji Sanje Rupa Shosho Sanje Chetan Soki Chonan La Chanchu Padu Dagi Kyapsuji Dagi Jizo Jipe Sonamji Drola Penji Sanje Rupa Sho Sanje Tamche Yuhadam Deve Gyudam Deva Chuji Dumya Dam Duve Gi Gyudam Deva Chuji Dumya Deve Deva Dhamma Dam Deva Chuji Ye Chadam Nidam Deve Tanum Chempola Nebura Chuji Sanje Tamche Yuhadam Deve Gyudam Deva Chuji Dumya Dam Duve Gi Gyudam Deva Chuji Dumya Deve Deva Dhamma Dam Deva Chuji Ye Chadam Nidam Deve Tanum Chempola Nebura Chuji Sanje Tamche Yuhadam Deve Gyudam Deva Chuji Dumya Dam Duve Gi Gyudam Deva Chuji Dumya Deve Deva Dhamma Deva Chuji Ye Chadam Nidam Deve Tanum Chempola Nebura Chuji Padenzave Lama Rinpoche Dagi Jivo Deve Rinchula Kari Chengu Kone Chesunte Kusum Tuki Mundu Tsetu Su Kangi Lutu Dumi Tida Nida Nunda Rapsa Vaji Yedama Jishe Seje Niki Kuwa Le Mangse Kanda Sebe Sarama Le Motun Doma Josebe Rosu Kuna Puji Tase Yana Tujo Yane Sotu Dashiro Yumo Nyuno Legi Jono Tonse Che Mare Mosu Duma Nyugo Jinye Chonse Radina Dune Taje Sajo Taso Yedyo Rosu Kese Togo Chudo Chudo Junyi Gyude Dalu Mosa Jende Yana De Zede Cheki Kera Mosa Je Dalu Timo Momba Rapsane Kata Tejo Chudo Toba Yin Lodo Bobe Nawa Zato So Namo Layi Kena Luda Luji Ketu Bumda Lali Kenom Dan Robo Kunje Robo Kunje Dagi Chesamba Tamje Keto Dagi Chudo Good afternoon again, and I hope you had a good rest. And so I will try to speak slowly now because I've been trying to speak very fast, and that's my old habit. So my grandmother also, when she walked, so there's a saying that if you walk slowly, she will fall down. So I guess it's the same with me. So if I talk too slowly, then I think I will fall down. So I will try to speak slowly, but then after a few minutes, maybe again I'll be in the same pace. Okay. So since we talked about the experience or the appearances, yeah. So when I say experiences or the appearances, it means the same thing. Yeah? And now we know that some experiences or some appearances are not based on true facts, or some experiences or some appearances are not based on the right reasons. Yeah. For example, we can say the concept of big and small. Yeah. So so we experience something as big, and then we experience something as small. Yeah? So that's the mind. The mind that experiences big
or the mind that experiences small, or the mind that experiences nice, or the mind that experiences bad is called the concept mind. Yeah? And when you look at the things around you, so they're not big and they're not small. Yeah? So when the eye consciousness sees things around, things to form, we say the eye consciousness just sees the particles. Yeah? And then the particles are not big, they're not small, and then the particles are not good and they're not bad. Yeah? And then the concept comes in. And then the concept, so he does not seize big and small in the object. Right? He does not seize good and bad in the object, but then the concept, he makes it up. Yeah? He makes it up because of the habit. Because we have these tendencies, which comes from life and life and life. So we have the habit, and then when the eye consciousness sees the particles, then the concept thinks it's big, it's small, it's nice, it's bad. Yeah. So we know. Okay. So so we have such experiences or such appearances which is not based on true facts. Yeah. But also we say in the text that such concepts are also so they're also important in the post-meditation period. Yeah. So when you meditate, and then you have to find the true nature. So when you meditate, you should know that big and small is a wrong view, right? So that's why we do meditation. We do meditation, to experience something that is true, and not something that is false. Yeah. And then the concept of big and small, it's a false concept. So when we meditate, right, try to experience something that is true. But in the post-meditation period, we need this concept again. Yeah, we need the concept of big, we need the concept of small, and we need the concept of good and bad. So, right, and also in the text they say, we have to use the concept to realize the ultimate truth. Yeah, or we have to use the conventional truth to realize the ultimate truth. Right, so we cannot, find the ultimate truth. With not relying on the relative truth. Yeah. Yeah, and also in the post-meditation period, so you can think the world is good, right? The world is a good place, right? But during meditation, so you should not think the world is a good place. I mean, you should try to find the nature, yeah. And then, so when you find the nature of the world, and then the world is, the nature of the world is because of selflessness, impermanent, suffering, yeah. But then some people, they think, okay, if I have to meditate that in the meditation period, right? And then when you come to the post-meditation period, so you also have to think that way. So that is, I'm not sure, but I think it's not the right way. So in the post-meditation period, you don't have to think the world is, suffering and all that. So you can just leave, you can just be normal, and then you have the food and you can eat, and then you can see the world. Yeah. And so we usually we judge based on our experiences. Yes. When we live in the normal life, we used to judge based on experiences. Yeah. So so just because you experience something, yeah, that doesn't mean it's true. Yeah. So we should be careful. So that's why we say we should not judge based on based on what you experience, but you should judge based on the right understanding and also the right knowledge. Yeah, and also the sutra it says we have this fourth statement. The first statement it says don't depend on the relative truth, but you have to depend on the ultimate truth. Yeah, and also the second instruction is don't depend on the person. So you have to depend on the teachings. And the third instruction is don't depend on words, but you have to depend on the meaning. And fourth is don't depend on five senses, but you have to depend on the wisdom. Yeah. So we have to, so that's all. I think it's talking in the meditation period. Yeah, in the meditation period. So don't depend too much on the relative truth. Yeah, try to find the nature of the things. But in the post-meditation period, you have to use the relative truth. You have to use the concept to reach, right? And also till you reach the first bhumi, so we say the path is more or less concept. Yeah, so we have to meditate. Then so we have to meditate with right. Yeah, we have to meditate, and then we have to meditate with the right understanding, and then we have to rest on it. Yeah. And if you have the right understanding, and then the right knowledge, and then if you meditate on that, and that is the mind training. Yeah. But if you don't have the right understanding, and if you don't have the right knowledge, and if you try to meditate on that, that is not mind training. Yeah. For example, if you take sound as an example, so sound is impermanent. Okay. So when you say sound is impermanent, and then so now you have the view that sound is impermanent, right? But you have no understanding that sound is impermanent. You don't have the right view, and you don't have the right reason to say sound is impermanent. So it's just a view. It's just a doubt. Yeah. So that's why so when you meditate, try to find the right reason, try to find the right logic, right? And then when you meditate with the right logic, so when you meditate with the right understanding, right? And then so it's also called mind training. Yeah. And if you don't meditate, and then if you let your mind wander around, right? And then the mind can think whatever he wants. Sometimes the mind can say there is no past life, there is no mind, there is no future life. The mind can go wild. Yeah? So we have to meditate properly. So we can meditate on the feeling of happiness. The feeling of pleasure. Yeah, the feeling of happiness. So what is the feeling of happiness? Do you have any guesses? What is the feeling of happiness?
Being connected. Being connected.
Being
The feeling
connected.
of happiness. Being connected with an object, with a perception, with a seeing of a tree or a flower. If I have a connection with that thing, it's a feeling of happiness.
So when you are, being connected with an object, and then you feel happy.
I mean, not with a living object.
Sorry.
With a living object.
Oh, with a living object.
We should not forget being happy without reason. Very important.
Yeah. So I've written something here. Yeah. What is it? Yeah. Okay. So because the feeling of happiness. Yeah. Normal people, we chase the feeling of happiness, right? We run after the happiness, and then we're not scared of happiness. Yeah. For example, the human beings, the hungry ghosts, the animals and everyone. Yeah. We want the feeling of happiness. We crave for happiness. But then, if you check properly, the practitioners, yeah, they don't run after happiness. They don't run after the feeling of happiness. And then, in fact, they are also scared of happiness. Yeah? They fear the feeling of happiness. Yeah. So, and also, the practitioners, right? They are so scared of the feeling of happiness that they, practice to remove the feeling of happiness. Yeah. They go on a path, and now, they want to remove the feeling of happiness. Yeah. And like I said in the morning, they try to remove the feelings. So the feeling of suffering and also the feeling of the happiness, right? And the text says, when the practitioners, when they reach the fourth stage of the form meditation, yeah. So we have these many kinds of meditation, and then so when the practitioner, when they reach the fourth stage, so you have the first stage of form meditation, the second stage of form meditation, the third stage, and then once you reach the fourth stage of the form meditation, and then you are able to remove the feeling of happiness also. Yeah? So then the practitioners, they go, they practice this fourth stage of meditation, and once they reach the fourth stage of the form meditation, and then they're able to remove the feeling of the happiness, right? And then they're very happy now. So I mean, there's no happiness now. So and then they reach the fourth stage of the form meditation, and now they have no feeling of happiness, right? But now they have, yes.
I don't want to interrupt you. Just have a question. It's still working in me. You said that they don't seek for happiness, and they fear even happiness because they fear to be attached. It's this the reason?
Yes.
Yeah. But I don't know. But the seeking for the true happiness, which is not dependent on outer reason. Nevertheless, this is inner seeking.
Yes.
So I think it depends on which happiness. Because then I feel, oh my God, I'm so much seeking this happiness, but it's this happiness without reason. This not depend on an object anymore. But this is like the fuel for the practice also. I don't know if maybe I'm wrong, but it's that when you say they fear happiness, they fear the happiness which is connected with attachment. You mean this one, or how to understand?
I think when you said it's like a fuel, I think it's a fuel. So I think for many people, the feeling of happiness can be the fuel to practice also. But then the practitioners, the feeling of happiness, and then happiness is a different thing. So I was talking about the feeling of happiness. So now the feeling of the happiness or the feeling of suffering, and then the true happiness. I think there is a slight difference. So that's why so the practitioners, right, they want to remove the feeling of happiness, because from this feeling of happiness, so like you said, the craving comes, and also the grasping comes. But now they reach a stage. They reach a stage where there is no feeling of happiness. When they reach the fourth stage of the form meditation. So when they have the fourth stage of form meditation, and then they reach a state where there is no feelings. There's no feeling of happiness. There's no feeling of suffering. There's no feeling of neutral also. And then we say, but they have peace. And then this peace, it comes from the right understanding. So now, so in the fourth stage of the form meditation, when they remove the feeling of the happiness, somehow, they have this peace, and they say this peace is not the feeling, but it's just a peace, and this peace comes from the right understanding, right? And now, since they have no views, since they have no, since they have no feelings, and now they try to focus on to remove the views. And now, from the fourth stage of form meditation, and then they go to the formless meditation, and then in the formless meditation, they try to remove views, right? And then they try to, first they have the view of mind, and then they try to remove the mind. And then they have the view of space, and then they try to remove the view of space. And then they have the view of the nothingness, and then they try to remove the view of the nothingness. They go up and up. So when we say this, so again coming back to the post-meditation, these are all done in the meditation period. But then post-meditation, you don't have to remove anything. So when the feeling of happiness comes, you don't have to remove it. Or when the feeling of the suffering comes, you don't have to remove it. post-meditation means, when you're not meditating, when you're eating, because some people, they hear this and then, now, when they eat, they're happy, and now, and they want to remove the feeling of happiness in the post-meditation period, yeah. So, in the post-meditation period, so you don't have to, like His Holiness, Karmapa always says, yeah. So when you have fear, you don't have to remove the fear, and also when you have the feeling of the happiness, you don't have to remove the feeling of the happiness. That's all comes in the post-meditation period. But in the meditation period, you have to see them. You have to try to find the right nature, try to find the true nature, and also you have to try to remove, one by one. Yeah. I mean, that's also Mahayana practice. But if you go to Vajrayana, so there's a different way. But in the Mahayana practice, you have to, so we say Mahayana is Tulku. Yeah, Tulku means the first word. Tul means to remove. Shuk means to go on the next stage. Yeah, so we say, Tulku means, you remove the first stage and then you go on to the next stage, and then you remove the next stage, you go to the next stage. And so that's how the Mahayana, the gradual path is. And so we want to remove the feeling of the happiness. So why do we want to remove the feeling of the happiness? That's the question. Yeah. And then so we say, the practitioners, they want to remove the feeling of the happiness because the practitioners see the feeling of happiness as not real happiness. Yeah, first thing. And also the second reason is, the practitioners, they want to remove the feeling of the happiness because they also see the feeling of happiness as an obstacle to the calm mind. Yeah. So the practitioners, they want the calm mind, and then when they feel happy, it's not calm. Yeah, and then you're distracted. So also, they see the obstacles to the meditation. Yeah, the feeling of happiness. And also, we have these 12 links of interdependent, yeah, where we say, once you have the feelings, and then once you have the feeling or you have the sensation, yeah, feeling or sensation, right, and then you have the craving, right, and then you have the grasping. So the seventh link of the 12 interdependence. So the seventh is the sensation, right, and then the eighth is the craving, and the ninth is the grasping. So once you have the feeling, and then slowly comes the craving, and then slowly comes the grasping. Yeah, so that's why so the practitioners they want to remove this feeling of the happiness, right? So once they go higher and higher, and also so not only the feeling of happiness, right? So they want to remove the feeling of the suffering, and also right, so, and also not just the feelings. They see the whole samsara as a source of suffering, as a source of dissatisfaction. Yeah. So the feeling is there. The feeling of happiness is also dissatisfaction, and also the feeling of suffering is also dissatisfaction. But not just the feeling, also the form, the mind, and also the mental phenomena. Right? The whole samsara, which comprises of form, mind, feeling, and then mental phenomena. Yeah, so these are the samsara, and so we see the whole thing as not real happiness, as a dissatisfaction and not real happiness. Yeah, and also there is a famous quote by a master, and he also says so all conditioned things are so all conditioned things are impermanent. All conditioned things are also suffering. Yeah, so that's a the line that is used. And so we say that the whole world, so we say the whole world, or so we say the appearance of the whole world is it's not real happiness. Yeah, it's also dissatisfaction. Why? So we say the whole world or the whole appearance is dissatisfaction because it is born from ignorant mind. Yeah. And something that is born from an ignorant mind, they cannot be real happiness. Yeah, so real happiness is not born from an ignorant mind. Yeah. And also something, so when you try to engage with that thing, and if it gives you dissatisfaction, or if it makes you uncomfortable, then that thing is also not real happiness. Yeah. So when you check properly, the mind, the form, the feeling, the mental phenomena, so when you try to engage with them more and more, like I said in the morning, so because of their nature, they keep changing, yeah, and then they keep changing, and they're also impermanent, right? So that's why so when you try to engage with them more and more, and you feel dissatisfaction after a while. Yeah? So that's why these are all not real happiness. Yeah. So in the text we have these three kinds of things. Yeah. We have the first thing is something that appears as suffering, and then something that appears as a feeling of happiness, and then something that appears as a neutral thing. Yeah. So we have these three things. And the first one, is something that appears as suffering, right? So for example, your headache. So that is easy to understand. Your headache is, so it's a dissatisfaction. It's also suffering, yeah. And also we have in the sixth realm. So each realm has their own kind of suffering. Yeah. For example, the human, we have the birth, death, sick, and then being old. Yeah. So we say these are the suffering of the human beings, right? And then in God, they also have their own kind of suffering. Yeah? So when they die, so when they're about to die, right, they know where they will get born, and then they have their own kind of suffering. Yeah? And then in semi-God also, they always fight with God, so they have their own kind of suffering. Yeah? So also in the hungry ghosts, the sentient beings in the hungry ghosts, they're very hungry all the time, and then they have the famine, so they're also suffering in that way, right? And also animals, they have no freedom, so they have no freedom, and then they also suffer in their own way, right? And also and also in the hell realm, there's this two kinds of suffering, yeah, the hot and the cold. So hot and cold. So this is the first kind of things that appears as suffering, and they are also suffering, yeah, and that's easy to understand. And now comes the second types of the appearances, or second types of experiences, which is the feeling of happiness. Because we say, okay, not just the suffering is suffering, but then we also say the appearance of the feeling of happiness is also suffering. Yeah? It's not real happiness. When we say it's suffering, it just means it's not real happiness, and also it means it also gives you dissatisfaction. Yeah? So that's why we use the word suffering. And so the second type, the feeling of the happiness is also not real happiness, right? Because it keeps changes. Okay, and something that is real happiness will never change. Yeah. So if something is real happiness, it will never change. But then the feeling of happiness keeps changing, so it's not real happiness. Yeah. Yeah, and also, so for example, the sweet cake. Yeah, the sweet cake is not happiness, because if sweet cake was real happiness, then it would never change. So it will stay the same, right? Whoever.
What is sweet cake?
Sweet cake.
What is that?
Cake.
Süße Kuchen.
Sweet.
Sweet. Yeah, okay. Sorry.
Yeah. So for example, sweet cake. Yeah. For example, sweet cake. We take it as the feeling of happiness. Yeah. But then, if sweet cake was a real happiness, then it would never change. Yeah. So so a real happiness will never change. But then, when you eat sweet cake, right, at first it gives you happiness, but then the more you eat, then it changes. So it means it is not real happiness. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And also, sweet cake is not real happiness, because if sweet cake was real happiness, then whoever tries it should be happy, right? For example, the sick person, if they try sweet cake, the sick person should also be, should also feel the feeling of the happiness, right? But if you look carefully, just some people feels happiness, not all, but not everyone. right? The sick people might not feel, feel happy when they eat sweet cake, or maybe a diabetes person will not feel happy when they eat sweet cake. Yeah, and if it's a real happiness, then whoever has contact with that thing should be happy. Yeah. So since sweet cake is not making everyone this, so it's not real happiness. And also, sweet cake is not real happiness because it is born from ignorant mind. Yeah, and like we said, and also like we said, a real happiness will not be born from an ignorant mind, but a sweet cake is a concept. Yeah, sweet is a concept. Sweet is not there in the cake. I mean, it's a concept. Yeah. So when it's a concept, it's born from an ignorant mind. And a real happiness will not be born from an ignorant mind. So that's why sweet cake is also not real happiness. And also, sweet cake is not real happiness because sweet cakes, and then they create emotions in you. Yeah? When you eat sweet cakes, right, you become happy, and then it creates emotions in you. A real happiness will never create any emotions in you. Yeah? So whoever is in touch with the real happiness, so you don't have any emotions, this won't create emotions, because if something creates emotion, and then because of emotion, and then you do an action, and then comes the samsara, and then comes the suffering. Yeah. So a real happiness will not create samsara for you. Yeah? A real happiness will not create emotions, which will create samsara for you. So that's why, the feeling of happiness, or for example, the sweet cake is also not real happiness. Yeah. And then comes the third, the neutral.
Is happiness not an emotion?
Yeah. So the feeling of happiness is an emotion. Yeah. Okay. And then comes the third kind. Yeah. And the third kind is the neutral, phenomena, like the trees, the phone, the computer, and we also say, they are also not real happiness. Right? They're also the source of dissatisfaction, because when you try to engage with the neutral things like trees, houses, plants, yeah, and you also get dissatisfaction after a while, and you also get dissatisfaction. It's because of their nature, because they keep changing, and they're also impermanent, and they're also selflessness, right? So they're not real happiness, because when you try to engage with the real happiness, it won't make you dissatisfaction. But the trees, and then the houses, the cups, the neutral things, right? The more you engage with them, they can be the source of dissatisfaction. So that's why they're not real happiness. Yeah, and also, these trees and then houses and then the neutral things, they're also born from an ignorant mind, right? And then a real happiness will not be born from an ignorant mind. Yeah? So it's the same concept coming again and again. So a real happiness will not be born from an ignorant mind, but these trees and they're born from the karma, yeah? And then the karma is also born from the self-cleansing mind. Yeah? You have self-cleansing mind, and then you do an action, and then so then you create a karmic imprint, and then from the karmic imprint, these things comes out. Yeah? So that's why. So since it is born from an ignorant mind, it is not real happiness. And also a tree and then cups and the neutral things, they're not real happiness because they also create emotions in you. They can also create suffering in you. Yeah, and they can also be the cause of pain sometimes. Like for example, a sun. Yeah, a sun is a neutral thing, but if you keep staying, yeah, if you keep staying under the sun for a long time, you will feel pain. Yeah. So a real happiness, will not give you that pain. Yeah? So that's why, a sun is not real. Sun is not real happiness. And also likewise, also swimming and also hiking. So if you check, so likewise, if you check the phenomena around you, the phenomena that looks like suffering, the phenomena that appears as happiness, or the phenomena that is, the neutral. If you check properly, they're all, when you try to engage with them, they can be the source of dissatisfaction, and they're also born from an ignorant mind. They can also create emotions in you, And that's why we say, the whole samsara is a source of dissatisfaction. Yeah? But then again, in the so we said also, that there's this one thing that is not suffering. Yeah, it's your mind. So you have to take refuge in that mind. Yeah. Yeah. And now, so what is real happiness? Yeah. So real happiness is, when you engage with them, or if you have a contact with them, right? And it won't change, So for example, if a sick person gets in touch with the real happiness, he would get the real happiness, yeah. Or if a sad person also, yeah. So if a sad person gets in touch with the real happiness, he would feel, so he would experience that happiness, yeah. And also, so a blind person or a stressful person, whoever gets in contact with that thing, and if you, so this won't change, right? Okay, and also something that is a real happiness is also, they won't create emotions in you, and they won't create, the negative mind in you, And also something that is real happiness is not born from an ignorant mind. Yeah, and also something that is real happiness. Yeah. So what do you think is the real happiness? I mean, that is my logic. I'm not sure if it's true. I'm just trying to share what I thought. Yeah, but you can.
I think peace of mind and joy, not about something, but a state of joy to be in.
Yeah, I think when there is no grasping, then comes a relax. Then I'm relaxed. So maybe it goes in this direction.
Yes, I think it's true. Yeah, and also we say, the feeling of happiness, it also has an object. Yeah, so it's born from an object. But then the real happiness is not born from an object. Yeah? If something has a cause, then it's not real happiness. Yeah? If something has a cause, and if something has to depend on something else to be that thing, then it's not its nature. Yeah? Because he needs something to be that. For example, a sun is hot. If sun needs someone else, if the sun has to depend on something else for it to be hot, then sun is by nature not hot. Right? So it needs something else for it to be hot. Yeah? So likewise, the feeling of happiness, it also needs an object. So that's why the feeling of happiness is not real happiness. So from my point of view, I think also peace from right understanding, is real happiness. Yeah. So we can talk about this. Yeah. So peace from right understanding. Yeah. So when you have the right understanding, and then you meditate, and then you gain some peace, so that is a real happiness. And if you, right, and that peace will not create any emotions in you. Yeah. When you have that peace, and then you won't get attached to that, yeah, and you won't get angry or you won't get ignorant because of that peace. Yeah. So that's why it's real happiness, maybe. And then peace from right understanding, it is not born from an ignorant mind. Yeah, it is born from right understanding. It is born from right knowledge. Right, and also this peace, this peace won't change. If a dog has a contact with this peace, he will be in peace. If a blind person is in contact with this, he will be in peace. if a sad person gets in contact with this peace from an understanding, he would be at peace. Yeah? So it won't, change. And also, peace from an understanding, this won't change. So at first you get peace, and then after, it changes to suffering. Yeah? This won't happen with this also. Yeah, and also, and if you check properly, there's no real happiness out there in the object. Yeah? Because there's no object that does not have a cause. Yeah, and there's no object that does not change to suffering, or there's no object that does not become a source of suffering, right? And then there's no object that is fixed with the happiness to everyone. Yeah, so maybe the phone can give one person happiness, but the phone won't give everyone happiness. Yeah, and also, there's no object that will not create any emotions. Yeah, so every object will create emotions. Like if you see, like the form will create emotions, and also the mind, and also the feelings, and also mental phenomena. So they will create emotions in you.
Are you thinking of a certain Tibetan word, like Deva Chenpo, with this happiness that you are talking about?
Yeah, yes.
Is it Mahasuka, Deva Chenpo?
Deva Chenpo, yeah. Deva Thamba.
Deva Thamba, okay, yes.
Yeah, Deva Chenpo, yeah. And also, yeah, and also this peace is not born, not born from ignorant. So if you check properly, there's no real happiness in samsara. Yeah, because samsara is born from an ignorant mind. But then, with that said, it's just in the meditation period. Yeah, in the post-meditation period, so you don't have to think that way. But just in the meditation period, you think that way. Yeah, because there should be these differences. Because so when we say, there's no real happiness, it doesn't mean that, in the post-meditation period also, you have to try to remove the feeling of happiness. Yeah. Yeah, so this peace can also mean, like you said, right? So this peace can also be the Deva Chenpo, right? The ultimate peace, or maybe Deva Thamba. So when you pray now, when you do the 4 immeasurable prayers, the third immeasurable prayers. Do you remember what is the third immeasurable prayer? Yeah. So joy, peace, right? The ultimate joy. So we say, may all sentients, so may all sentient beings be free from suffering, and then they attain the ultimate happiness. I mean, joy. Yeah. So we don't say happiness, but we say joy. But this joy, so in Tibetan we say the same. Yeah? Deva. So may all attain the ultimate peace. May all attain the ultimate joy. Yeah. So this is, You have any questions?
Suffering is mind, but mind creates all the suffering. So how to distinguish?
I mean, we have these 2 kinds of mind, and then the mind that creates suffering is not the real happiness, but then the mind that stops everything is the real happiness.
And how do you distinguish? How do you find these 2 different qualities? How do you find the mind that is not suffering?
Yeah. Okay, so how do you find?
Yes. Or this discover? I don't know how you say
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. How do you discover? Yeah. Mind. The true wisdom mind. I mean, so you have to go through the stages. Yeah? Because first you know that, okay, there is this mind which is pure and which is free of emotions, which is like space and everything. And now to realize that, you have to examine. Yeah? So in the Mahayana way, through the karma abiding. So you have the karma abiding meditation, and then you're aware of the mind, and then you focus, right? And then you examine. The more you examine, and then you have to stabilize, and again examine, stabilize, and then this mind comes out. Yeah.
There's a few lifetimes.
Yeah.
So you feel me later.
So then when the feeling of happiness is not the real happiness, and then what is the purpose of life? If not feeling of happiness, then why do we exist? Or why are we here? Or why did we born? What is the purpose of life? Yeah. So I just thought about this also. So I was in the library, and then I just thought, okay, why are we born? What is the purpose of life? Right? And I think people also think that way. Why do we exist? Or why are we born? Right? So I thought of an example. Okay, so let's say we have a lake. Okay, and then we have a dog's image, or maybe a dog's reflection, dog's image on the lake. Yeah, so we have a lake, and then we have a dog's image on the lake. Now we have 3 people. Yeah, and these 3 people is person A, person B, and person C. Yeah, so person A, he also sees the dog image on the lake. Yeah. And also person B also sees the dog's image on the lake. And then person C also sees dog's image on the lake. Okay, but then person A, yeah, when the person A sees the dog's image on the lake, he thinks that the dog's image is the real dog. Yeah, and then when the person B also sees the dog's image on the lake, he also thinks, okay, the dog's image is the real dog, but it's kept by someone else. Right? But it's the real dog. Okay, and then the person C, when he looks at the dog's image on the lake, he knows that the dog's image is not the real dog. It's just the dog's image. Yeah? So we have this person A, who thinks the dog's image is the dog. Person B thinks the dog's image is the dog, but it's kept by someone else. And person C thinks the dog image is not the dog, but it's just the dog's image, yeah, on the lake. And he knows that the dog's image is just the nature of the lake. Yeah. So from these 3 people, who do you think will ask, what is the dog's purpose? Person A or person B or person C? Yeah. So from these 3, person A might ask, yeah, because person A thinks the dog's image is the dog. So the person A might ask, what is the dog doing on the lake? Yeah. And also person B also thinks the dog's image is the dog. And then person B will also ask, what is the dog doing on the lake? What is his purpose? Who kept him there? Right? And then comes person C. Person C will never ask. Yeah? Person C will never ask, what is the dog's purpose? Because he knows the dog is not there. He knows the dog is not there. He knows the dog's image is the dog's image. Yeah? So he will never ask, why is the dog there on the lake? Right? But he might ask something else. Right? He might ask, how is the dog's image there? You know? So he might ask, how is the dog's image there, and what is the cause of the dog's image? Yeah. So likewise, we Buddhists also, I think, we rarely ask why. Yeah? We ask, we should try to ask how, because and then the moment you ask why, it also shows that you think it's real. Yeah. So why is the karma there? If you ask why is the karma there, it also it's like saying, okay, the karma is there, but why is it there? Right? But then if you check properly, there's no karma. Yeah. But then, okay, in the concept mind, there's karma, there's everything. But if you check properly, the karma is not out there. Yeah.
So you are saying that the question, what's the purpose of life, is the wrong question.
Yeah.
Okay, you should rather ask, how does this illusion of life come about?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and also, so there are some questions that we ask. Who made the mind? When did the mind start? Right? And also, who made the karma? Yeah, so many people ask, who made the karma? Who made the hell? Who made the heaven? Who made the universe? Right? But if you look carefully, it's all appearances on the mind. Right? It's not there. Right? And also, the Shantideva says in the Bodhicharya Avatar, yeah. And he says, the hell, the heaven, it's all the negative mind. Yeah? So it's all, created by the negative mind. So that's why, so we Buddhists, we tend not to ask why, yeah? And we tend to ask how. It's not because we can't find the answer. Yeah? Because, when you go and search, so you can't find the life itself. Yeah. So first to know why, why are we alive? We need to find I, or we need to find you and me. And if you check properly, there's no I, there's no you, right? So for example, even the Buddha was asked the 14 questions. Yeah, I'm sure all of you know the 14 questions he was asked by someone, and then some of the questions are. Does universe has an end? Right? Or is self permanent or impermanent? Right? Or so like that. Right? So he was asked some questions like this, and then the Buddha kept quiet. Right? So he didn't reply. And then we say because he didn't reply, he knew the answer. Yeah? Because if he says self is permanent, the person will think self exists and is permanent. And if the Buddha says self is impermanent, the person will think self exists and is impermanent. Right? So then he kept quiet. The Buddha kept quiet.